first shot on Daryl's wings, it just feels right to kind of start the season on Daryl. There's this big storyline that he's helming for this first block. And I think that angel wing vest with the modifications that Judith made in the last season, there's something that's so emblematic about it. I think it speaks a lot to the person that Daryl wants to be. And there's times when those angel wings have gotten destroyed. There are times when it's been built back up. And so we love that image, and it just felt like the right thing to kind of start the story on. So we have seen lurkers on The Walking Dead before, but we just haven't really done a big lurker action sequence like this. They're the type of zombies that just seem like they're dead, and suddenly they'll wake out of this sort of dormant state. They are a big part of the mythology of the comic book. Most walkers are roamers. They're the ones that they move and move and move constantly in search of food. We thought it'd be really fun to just feature the lurkers, where the danger is how many of those bodies down there are actually dead, how many of them might be alive, and how do you avoid kind of like stirring up that hornet's nest. So it's definitely always been part of the mythology, but not one that we've used very much until now. It was really fun to do this action sequence and see our amazing women do the fight. That idea really came about because if you're going to send people down into a building, you want to send the lightest people. And why not do like a super cool sequence with the women and start off the season that way? It was really, really fun to see them kick ass. I think what's really important to keep in mind when we're talking about our characters and the debate about whether to go to Meridian is that they have just come out of this massive war with the Whisperers. And it just was devastating for their communities. So they're still just licking their wounds and trying to pick themselves back up. There are people that wound up homeless basically and had to be taken in as refugees. So the idea of kind of traveling a distance, going to face these people when they are practically starving. For some of our people, it just feels like it's a bad trade. Why not try to fix those walls and find the food closer to home? For Maggie, of course she wants to help our people, but is there this element of revenge that's driving her too? Does she want to take it back just to get the food, or does she want to take it back because she's angry about what happened and because the people from Meridian are kind of pushing her? So I think really there are multiple sides to the issue, and I personally don't feel like any character is wrong in this scenario. You know, it's just really a matter of what are the different things that need to be done to keep everyone safe. And I think people come down on different sides of it and have reasonable opinions on either side.
Oh, if you don't have food, it's not gonna matter anyway. I'll go. Anybody else?
In the subway, we really love that feel of like the long corridors that you're sneaking around, and it's dark and it's dank and there are things moving and lurking. That was something that we particularly love. Whenever we do an environment on the show, and especially if it's something that's as featured as the subway, we want to tell a little bit of the story of what was there before, you know, or like what has happened since. And I think for us, we were really thinking about stories of people who are homeless living in subways. And there's a real story about class, which runs through what happens in a subway. And it's also a place where people from a variety of classes crash into each other as they're going to work or they're kind of going about their lives. That thematically is very important for us for the entire season. So we thought we'd take this opportunity in the first episode where we wanted to do the subway because we thought that was cool and scary, and we hadn't done something in a subway before on the show. So we're always looking to kind of mix that up. But we thought, like, you know, there is this opportunity to tell this story about high and low and the mix of people that kind of crash into each other at the beginning of the apocalypse.
We are walking through a mass grave that could still be in use.
She has been playing dictator since we left.
Maggie and Negan, there's just no love lost between them. They don't trust each other, and why should they? You know, given the history that has preceded them up to this point. After Glenn was killed in front of Maggie, and he just seemed to find such glee in that, I don't feel that Maggie is at a place where she thinks she's ever going to forgive this person. And I think for Negan's part, he feels like he's been on a journey to try to redeem himself, and it's been a bumpy one, you know? I mean, this is not a person who is by any means perfect. I think there's a lot of times that he is definitely in a gray area, maybe even still in a villainous area, but he's trying, and she has not been privy to a lot of that. And so he feels like her view of him is stuck back when she came and was going to, as a vigilante, take him out. And she just left him to rot in jail. So I think on either side, the lack of trust is absolutely warranted. Like, if you're Negan, of course you think she's gonna try to take you out. She did it once, why wouldn't she do it again? And I think for Maggie's part, I think she recognizes very reluctantly that this is a person who is formidable and can be a resource, but she doesn't trust him. So I think like they're really starting at the season just as far apart as they can possibly be.
Keep pushing me, Negan. Please.
In our first view of how the Commonwealth handles things, our people are basically going through a detention center, which is like prior to coming into the walls of the Commonwealth. For the interrogation, we wanted this sense of a few things. Like, one, that our people are going through this really horrific, sort of repetitive, strange process. We also wanted to show that they were good liars and had clearly come up with some sort of story, maybe on the wagon ride over, but they've decided that they're going to tell a lie, which is probably smart given how hardcore this group is.
Do you consider yourself a fundamentally honest person?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Hell yeah.
We sort of thought early on, like, you know, maybe this would be a time to try a split screen. It's not something that has been part of the visual language of this show up to this point, but it felt like it was right for this moment, and I think like we got some really great moments out of it.
Have you ever been arrested?
No.
Yeah, but it
Yes,
wasn't
during a student protest.
Do you think this is funny?
Yeah.
Our people find themselves in the uncomfortable position of being wannabe immigrants or refugees into whatever this place winds up being. I don't think they have a really good sense yet of what it is, but what they're seeing are just these kind of odd clues that perhaps the Commonwealth is both like and unlike a world that they once knew before the apocalypse. And so, you know, they see this wall of the lost, and we've seen things like that just in the real world when there's a major disaster. People are looking for their loved ones, and that comes straight out of the comic book. And I think Kirkman took inspiration from similar things where there's this real sadness to think about how many people were lost during even this fictional zombie apocalypse. It's just that reminder once again that any community at this point in the story is comprised of people who have lost so much. And so that's going to drive the decisions they make about how to move on.
I have to stay.
The final scene with Negan and Maggie, I think we were really interested in the idea of just pushing the conflict between them as far as possible. Negan, that guy's a survivor, and if he thinks somebody is out to kill him, then, you know, I don't know that he's actively trying to get rid of her, but he's an opportunist as well. So he sees this opportunity to just not help, even if that effectively means he's okay with letting her fall to her death, possibly. For us, it was always about this character moment of these two people that hate each other and don't trust each other. And when you're in an extreme situation, do you step up and help unexpectedly, which is usually like what we see our characters do, or do you let kind of like the worst version of things happen? We just thought that it was interesting to push them to that point.